Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you are doing alright and that you are having a really good time at the moment. This video will be published on the 29th of December, so that explains why I'm talking about that. And so, back to the project. Here you can see me setting up the scene for the light pass. So I've added a new layer, made it affected by the color layer as a mask, and now I'm just gonna start to draw over my previous drawings just to indicate where some light will be on my character. So remember, we've seen that the light is coming from the top right hand corner, so this is about the direction where I will set my light. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, this is kind of real time. So what I need to do is find some interesting subject to talk about while you can see what's going on. I have to admit I'm not scripting anything except what I'm doing right now for the project, so I haven't thought about anything special. Let's think about it. It's the end of the year, so that's the time where people think a lot about what we did the previous year, so a reflection on what was and what would be our goals for the next year. You might have already heard and watched and read a lot of things about that, so I'm not sure that adding one more thing on top of that would really make a difference. But just in case, I think I'm just gonna talk a bit more about my general life, what happened in 2022. For me at least, was that I managed to do more, and for this I'm really grateful because that's something I struggled a lot with before. Like, I don't know if you are this kind of person, but I was doing a lot of tests, a lot of trials, a lot of projects, but none of them were really finished. So this is what has changed. And I'm glad it did, because as you can see, I've switched my mindset from this kind of vision of how things should be to something like finish, not perfect. You can see again that it's not perfect, but it's gonna be finished. More on that at the end of the video. And so this year what I need to do is, although I'm finishing a lot of things, I think I need to choose a priority, like having not something like 7 or 8 projects at the same time, which is a bit overwhelming at times, but maybe 1 or 2 very important projects, 1 or 2 VIP, and then to have them done no matter what, and then if I have the time, I can spend them on doing a few other more projects. So this is my goal for next year, and I'm sure I'm gonna succeed in doing so. And so now, what we're gonna have a look at is the next pass, which is the shadow pass. I forgot to record the very beginning of it, but you can see I've already laid down a few strokes, and now again I'm setting up my shadow layers, changing the blending mode, also the mask, it's already applied, and then I'm just gonna compare it with the entire scene to see how good it is looking like, because of course we are thinking about how good things are now. Although it's not perfect, it can still be good. I think there's this saying that goes like that: perfect is the enemy of good. And I think it's true, but I heard recently somebody said good is the enemy of great. So target for great thing, and then of course they will become great. Not right now, but if that's your target, this is where you're going to go. Okay, so this is the way it's looking like. I kinda like it, I already said that, but well, it's good to see it coming to life again at each step. Like when I was only drawing the rough, it was kinda hard because I'm not used to it, and it was long, and it's just the rough and the in-between, so it's not really the final result. And now with the colors, the light, shadows, it's really coming to life. Okay, so after having done the shadows, I started the last pass, which were about the details. So the same way I did when I did the character design, I added darker lines to highlight the facial features of my characters, meaning mostly the area around the eyes, the mouth, and I also did the ear. Maybe I shouldn't have done it, but now it's too late to go back and erase it all. I could, but I don't want to. Okay, just because this is considered finished. And that was the last pass before we switch to something else. But the character and its animations are now considered finished. For this sequence, of course. Next, what I did, and this was also essential, I started to work on the characters at the back. You can see here that I've modified the 3D mesh I did earlier so that I could add them legs and see how they would look like. And then I did exactly the same process that I did for my main character, having some planes to help with the positioning of the grease pencil, and then I just drew a rough. This part is a bit sped up at times, just so that it doesn't take too long. It's about something like an hour in total, okay? And I don't think you want to hear me talking for an hour, so I did the rough, and then I did a little clean, let's say quote unquote clean pass, okay? And then again I added the colors using the same techniques I did for my main character, and I only did a shadow pass just because I didn't want them to have too much details even from afar, because they are not the main character, they are part of the story, but although we need to see them, they are not what we really want to see the most. Okay, so I only have a shadow pass, which is more than enough. Okay? After that, I'm gonna show you the entire sequence. It's not the final look, okay? It's just in material preview mode, but then you can see it. Alright, and now what I needed to do was to set the scene a certain way to have the renders. So I haven't mentioned that before, I think I haven't. On the top right hand corner of your window, you've got something that is called render layers, and you've got one by default every time with your new scene. Okay, you can give them a new name, and this will allow us to set specific settings only for the collections, and those settings can be different for each render layer that we set. Okay, so I've added a few render layers, and what I'm gonna do now is organize my scene so that the objects I need to enable or disable, depending on the render layers, are inside a collection. Okay? Because it's only taking into account the changes in the collection being activated or deactivated, not the render parameters. Okay? So, what I did was having a render layer with just the sets, one for my main character, another one for the characters at the back, and also one for the object which would be in front of the grease pencil, so that I can use them as a mask for my final compositing. Okay? So now I'm just launching a render, and what you will see is that it's rendering as much render layer as you have, as long as they are set up to be rendered. So I have one for the sets. You can see here it's rendering my character, and then the character at the back. So it's doing for the moment 3 renders. Okay? In the compositing, I'm not gonna show you how everything works. This is my setup, but I already did a video about that, so I will write a link to that in the description for you if you are interested in knowing more. And what I have here, it's a render layer. You can see that I have my 3 render layers. One for the set, one for the main character, one for the people at the back. And now I can use those to create my final image. Okay. I'm using most of the time a mix RGB node. Okay. And now I'm creating a mask with the object in front of what the grease pencil will be. For this, because it is the easiest way, I'm only setting up a render layer with them so that I can only see them, but it's not gonna be used in the final renders. And the only thing I'm doing is using the view menu and render viewports so that I have an image here that is black and white that I can use as a mask, but didn't take more than 1/10 of a second to render. Okay? Now that I'm using that, I can subtract the mask from the mask of the character and the people, and this is gonna be used for my final image. Okay. So, in the meantime, I've changed a lot of things. My compositor setting is not the same. I had a few things I needed to modify, like here, the lights. You can see that the way I set it up was working, but just for one frame. You can see that it's just not working. It's just going dark and light and dark and light. And that's so. I set all my layers to not take into account the lights of the scene. And what I did is I created a node group with a few nodes that uses the alpha of my image to create a brighter outline for my character. Okay? And I did the same for the people at the back. And then the other problem I had was that I used the holdout option from Blender, but again, you can see it working in the viewports, but when you render your image, it's not working. It doesn't make any transparent areas using that. So I ended up using again the render viewports parameter to create a mask that will work instead of just a normal render. Okay, and after a few hours doing that, I finally managed to have what I wanted to. So I'm gonna show you the results in a few moments, but what I wanted to say before was, of course, because it's the New Year soon, I wish you the greatest New Year's Eve. I hope you will have a lot of fun, a lot of joy, and a lot of shared moments with whomever will be with you. Starting from next week, meaning next year, I'm gonna give the lesson to my students, so the videos will be different. I'm starting a new project, so a new playlist. But this project, this is not the end. I'm gonna keep on working in the background on it. All the steps I will be doing, they will be exactly the same as I did so far. because I'm just gonna work on all the other sequences, but exactly the same way. So I don't think I need to show you the same steps for another environment or another type of animation anymore. You've got the keys to do it also yourself. I'm sure you do. And again, if you don't hesitate to ask me some help in the comments. I will be glad to answer them. So I hope you enjoy this sequence so far. I've used, let's say, some kind of temporary sounds, okay? But this should be the way it looks at the end and the kind of sound you will have. It might help you having a better grasp of the final project. Hopefully you had a good time following this and that you learned a lot of things. I wish you all the best. A great year, whichever year it is, of course. Have fun, enjoy life, and of course, I'll see you next time. Bye.